I'm Mayor Barbara McMorrow, and on behalf of Deputy Mayor Lester Preston, Committeeman Anthony Amiano, Tom Cook, and David Salkin, I welcome you to From the Mayor's Desk. We have a very different show for you today. Usually when you tune into From the Mayor's Desk, I'm speaking with one or two guests. Today, as you can see, I have 4 guests with me. And you're going to find this show probably one of the most interesting that we have ever had on From the Mayor's Desk. The young women with me today are all firefighters. The face of firefighting has certainly changed. And I'm going to ask each of my guests to please introduce herself and then tell us a little bit about what she does when she's not fighting fires. So let me begin on my left with our lieutenant.
Hi Barbara, my name's Lieutenant Kelly Temple with the East Freehold Fire Company. I've been with the fire service for about 6 years. I've been an EMT for over 20 years. What I do when I'm not firefighting, my career job is I work for the Monmouth County Health Department, environmental enforcement, and a hazmat responder.
That's great. Okay.
My name is Star McKenna. I've been a firefighter since this past summer. I was put in the company on June 14th. When I'm not fighting fires, I'm attending school at St. Joseph's University in Philadelphia, where I'm a double major in criminal justice and psychology. And this summer I'll be interning with the ATF.
And that is?
The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms.
Very interesting. And you're with Independent Fire
Yes,
Company.
Independent Fire.
We do have 2 fire companies in Freehold Township. We have East Freehold and Independent.
My name's Nicole Mitzelman. I'm part of Freehold Township Independent Fire Company. I've been a part of the company since September of last year. I'm a probationary firefighter, so I'm still attending the Fire Academy, hopefully graduating in May. I've been an EMT since 2014, and I work as an EMT in Manalapan.
Very good.
My name is Rachel Mitzelman. I'm with Independent Fire Company, Freehold Township Independent Fire Company. I've been with the department for a year now. I've been an EMT for almost 8 years, and when I'm not firefighting, I'm a full-time paramedic and a full-time student as well.
And where are you in school?
Columbia Southern University. So I take all my classes online right now, and my major is healthcare administration and EMS management.
Well, very diverse background on everybody here. So that's why it's going to be so interesting to find out what brought you all together as firefighters. So that would be the next question I think we'd all like to know is when and why did you decide to become a firefighter? When we talked earlier before the show a little bit, and I said when I was growing up many, many years ago, as a woman, you had a choice. You know, you could be a teacher, you could be a nurse, you could be a salesperson, you could be a secretary, or you got married and had children, but firefighting would never have been an option back then. I won't tell you how far back then, but back then. So if I could ask each one of you, when did you decide, how did you decide, what was it that made you want to become a firefighter? And let me also thank all of you for being firefighters, and let me thank all our firefighters out there for doing what they do, because you save lives every time you go out into a burning building. You never know what the story will be, but it's always a happy ending when our firefighters are out there making sure everybody is safe. You really put your lives on the line, and we're very grateful. So maybe we'll start with Lieutenant again. Kelly?
I think I got into emergency services originally when I was 17. I was always getting hurt as a kid. I was always on an ambulance. I was in sports, so I was always breaking a bone, falling off, you know, hurting my head, doing something. So I was always making my parents nervous then. And being in an ambulance, and I guess I just wanted to give back. But you know, I became an EMT because I started riding with Randolph Rescue Squad in 1997, and I was an EMT for a long time. And I just said, you know what, I want more. And I've always been interested in the fire service. I think it's a challenge, and I think it's a good challenge. And when I moved into Freehold about 10 years ago, I just said, well, it's time, and I went through the Fire Academy at 38 years old, and was the only woman, and I was a squad leader. So I definitely, enjoy both, but I think I have more of a passion for the fire service.
So, you were for a while the only woman
Mm-hmm.
firefighter
Yes.
in both companies?
Correct.
Okay, and it's just recently
Yeah.
that we have begun to expand to more female firefighters.
Right, which is great.
Yeah.
I don't feel so lonely.
Well, that's why I think this is such a wonderful story to tell, because sitting out there in our audience, watching TV from home, might be other young ladies who are thinking, you know what? I can be a firefighter.
Sure.
So you're wonderful role models for them, and I thank you so much for that. Sora, what about you?
So, I come from like a family where a lot of women like to break glass ceilings and move up and do things that aren't traditional.
Mhm.
So, I think my mom was a huge role model growing up, doing that and pushing me to do things that are outside my comfort zone, as well as my dad. So, I think ever since I was little, I've always wanted to work in some sort of federal law enforcement agency, which was just like something I always wanted to do. And when I started becoming, in high school, I actually became friends with Nicole and saw that she was an EMT, and I thought that was really awesome. So I decided to join Freehold EMS, and then I got closer to the fire department, and I kind of, like what Kelly was saying, wanted more, and that was where I decided to push myself a little farther and challenge myself a little more. And I ended up going to the fire academy in Middlesex over last summer in an accelerated program because I'm in college, so I don't have time to do the 4-month program.
Mm-hmm.
And like she was saying, I was also a squad leader, and I was not one of the thanks. I was not one of the only women. There was 2 other women in my fire academy as well, so it was a good experience overall. But I think that's really what pushed me, was to challenge myself and step outside my comfort zone.
And you're both mentioning that we do have the Monmouth County Fire Academy
Yes.
here, and we, well, not right here, but we have it here in Monmouth County, and that's where the 3 of you then
Mhm.
Yeah.
trained, and you were in Middlesex.
Yes, I
and
was in
there's an
Middlesex.
accelerated program there
Yes.
that they have.
Mhm.
Okay, see, I'm learning something with all of this too. Nicole.
Okay, so I guess it started out because, like we said, we're sisters. Our brother started doing all of this. He was more
Okay.
into the emergency services because he's a lot older than us, so he was able to do it when he was younger, and we were still way too young to start. But then she started doing the first aid, and then I started to get into that when I was of age, so I really started to like that. And then she joined the fire department, so then I started hanging out there more, and I became friends with people there, and I started to get more interested in it. And I was like, okay, so maybe this is something that I want to do, and now I'm in the academy, so.
So you have been a very positive influence on your sister.
sounds
That's
that
very
way.
nice. That's very nice. That really is. And so when did you decide?
I got involved with my local first aid squad almost 8 years ago, and I think there are a lot of instances where EMS and fire work very closely together.
Yes.
So it started to interest me a little bit more when I was younger, but I never thought that it was something that I would be able to do originally until just a little over a year ago. Somebody asked if I would like to fill out an application for the fire company. So I said, you know what, why not? Let me try something new, and I did, and they wanted to send me to the fire academy right away, and I was very nervous at first, but as soon as I started at Monmouth County Fire Academy, I realized that I could do so much more than I thought that I was capable of, and it was a very rewarding feeling. So ever since then, I've just been pretty much in love with it. I really, really enjoy what I get to do.
It's a passion.
It is,
I think
yes.
all of you have that passion
Definitely.
for it. You do. I'm going to get back to what you said about the academy, what you've all mentioned about the academy, but I know our viewers probably are going to be very interested in the reaction people have when they find out that you're a female firefighter. I'm sure they don't know when you first get on the scene because you're all in that gear,
Mhm.
and you really can't tell who is behind that helmet and everything that you're wearing, which seems very heavy to me. So
Yes.
is it heavy, the helmet? It looks.
The helmet and gear and your SCBA pack, probably about 60, 70 pounds.
Yeah.
Mhm.
75?
But it doesn't feel like that.
No, because
No.
It's distributed pretty
Yeah.
evenly across your body.
And that's the way you're able to wear all that and get up ladders and do what you have to do.
Plus
You know, put
you're
in-
running on adrenaline. It's
So much
pure
adrenaline.
adrenaline. It
Yeah.
Pushes you.
So have you had any reactions at all with people when they realize And when do they realize it? When you take off your helmet or?
Pretty much, or you speak and they, oh, okay. Well, great, I'm so glad you're here. Yeah.
It's always a positive.
Yeah, yeah.
A positive.
And then they tell me to go get their cat. 'Cause I'm gonna get the cat and some others will be like, all right, I'll get back to it.
Yes, yeah, but that's important.
Yes, of course it is.
To get
Yes.
the pets out, yes, absolutely. But I would imagine some are surprised. You know, if you take off your helmet, and they realize, or they hear you speak and they realize that you are a female firefighter. Are there more, in other communities? Do you think that there are more, do you see more females coming in or not
There's
so much?
actually 6 or 5 others in the fire academy this semester. 5 other women with me.
And that would be in different communities?
Yeah, they're from all different towns.
From
I
all over.
believe Middletown has the most female firefighters in Monmouth County at the moment.
Mhm.
They have a handful, at least 6 or 7, I'm pretty sure.
Philadelphia has one.
Morganville has one.
Yeah.
So when you go through the training in the academy, what is it? Because you have to do, and let me share with our viewers, that the women you see here and other female firefighters have to do exactly what the male firefighters do. There can be no difference, because when you're in a fire, you have to be able to carry the person out, get up a ladder, use those hoses. It takes, I think, incredible strength and endurance. I really do. I'm always amazed when I see what firefighters have to do. So what was the training like, you know? What did you like best or not so much? And I'm sure it's hard to have to do all that, and yet you did it, you're doing it.
Yeah.
And we have all faith that you're going to complete that.
You'll be
absolutely fine.
So what was it? Who wants to just tell their story, her story?
Well, going off of what Rachel was saying before, it's a lot of it has to do with just pushing yourself, and I'm sure everybody at this table at one point thought that they couldn't do what they were about to enter themselves into. So a lot of it has to do with mindset, and it's a lot of mind over matter, and there's no cutting corners.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to just push yourself through and give yourself that reassurance and be your own biggest fan and your own biggest supporter. Because at the end of the day, all the instructors are really great and they are always willing to work with people, but there is no cutting corners, because at the end of the day when you're at a scene, you have to do things, you have to get the job done.
Yeah, people's lives depend on you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
It is. So what things do you learn at the academy?
Basically everything from putting on your gear to actually putting out fires and everything in between, how to search a house, how to get up and down a ladder, everything.
You how to do it safely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
They're very safety conscious. It's not just let's run up a ladder, it's let's make sure we put it up right, let's make sure we climb it 3
that's
points of
interesting.
contact with your tool, and
Mhm.
don't put your mask on, and they're very conscious of safety, which is key. I mean, you don't want to just
Right.
go running up a ladder or pulling a hose without knowing how to safely do it.
And with all the training, when you actually go to the fire, it just becomes natural for you to do because you've been trained, and so you know about putting the ladder, whatever it is that you have to do, you just do it because you have really moments.
Right.
So it's not so much where you stop and think, what am I supposed to do now? It's just become second nature to you, or first nature to you, really. You just go ahead and do what you have to do. I'm just amazed by it all. I really am. So challenges of being a woman as a firefighter, or are there any? Or do you just feel that, you get through the training and you're now on in the department? Or do you feel as a woman maybe it was a little more challenging?
I think there's a period of where you have to prove yourself to know that the guys around you can count on you.
That's a good point.
Because if it's me and Rachel going in, we know we can count on each other. But if I'm going to go in with somebody that maybe I don't know, or they don't know me, you have to have trust in that person, that if either one of us goes down, we have to know that that person can get you out, or we can push through and attack the fire. It's building that trust, I think, for me was my biggest focused at first, and to work hard to make sure that they can trust me and I can trust them.
And you were the first, so you started the trend. You were the first one. Yeah, well, you were a
Yeah.
trendsetter,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's what all of you are now for other women who are coming up to be firefighters. So what is it, the call comes in, 911 calls, it comes into the firehouse. You're at work, you're doing other things. What happens? How do you, your cell phone go off or text, or can you take me through that? What happens?
So, basically for our fire company, we have two forms of communication to get the call. We have it come to our cell phones directly, and we have it come through our pagers that I carry on me 24/7 basically, so I'll always be able to get the call. And as long as I'm anywhere in Freehold or close to the firehouse, I'll respond right away. And that's how all of our firefighters get notified and get to the firehouse quickly.
And you respond that you're on your way, or that you can,
Yes,
You
through
can-
the app on our cell phones, we're able to tell other firefighters that we're going to the firehouse.
so they know that they have enough
Right.
coming in.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, so you all come, you're all working at your different jobs, you get the call, you're gonna respond, you have to go to your firehouse.
Mhm.
Yes.
And what happens then?
We put our gear on, then we get on the truck and respond. There's a driver, there's usually an officer in the front seat, and then however many people you can get into the back, and you get to the scene.
And you're
Safely.
enclosed now in the truck, right? You're in, firemen are now inside, firefighters are now
It's a general
enclosed.
term.
It used to be where the firemen were on the sides,
Yeah.
like on running boards, hanging onto the sides
Mhm.
many, many years ago. But now I think that's POSHA or OSHA rules where you have to be inside the truck. It's safer for you to.
And seatbelted, and
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Now see, I learned something else.
if you don't have a
Big thing.
seatbelt on, there's a lot of alarms that go off
Yeah.
on certain trucks.
Well, that makes complete sense. I never would have thought about it. For your safety, because
Sure.
you're traveling at high speeds.
Mm-hmm.
I know whenever I see a fire truck going by, I always pull over, and then I always say a prayer, please let everyone be safe. Please let, the firefighters, the people whose house or business or whatever it is burning, please let everyone be safe. But you know what I noticed, just as an aside, not everyone always pulls over.
Mm.
No.
And I do wanna stress to our viewers, when you see a fire truck coming, a first aid truck, police, when you hear the sirens and you see the lights, safely, you should pull over. Because lives depend on that.
Mhm.
Your lives, because you're in the trucks, you're going through intersections and things, and the lives of the people you're going to.
Mhm.
So we really have to be more aware of that, more
Right.
cognizant of, to pull over. If there's no place to pull over, just stand still, just stay in your car and just stay put,
Stay put.
because you'll get around us.
Mhm.
Because sometimes in heavy traffic, there is no place to go.
Yeah,
And that's what everyone has just stopped,
right.
and so that you could get through it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have people who drive,
Mhm.
and that's their designation, they do that.
Not only
Or
that,
anyone can
I
drive.
mean, you can go through the training, there's actually SIVO classes that train you how to drive an ambulance, how to drive a fire truck safely. And then I can drive all of our apparatus but the ladder truck. So I'm getting there, I'm almost cleared, but.
Really? Very big special training for that, that's.
Yeah, that's a lot of hours, it's a lot of training, there's a lot of things that have to happen to put the ladder up safely, but, I'm sure, Rachel, you can get into your driver training at any point you've been on, you have to be a certain age and on a certain,
Yeah. Well, we have to take the pump operations class.
Right, pump
in order
ops
to
too.
drive, but yeah.
because it's not just driving and getting to the call, you have to learn how to operate the pump on the pump panel, you have to know how to flow the water, certain, pounds per, there's a lot of different things to.
Sounds like math to me, I'm getting scared.
Oh, there's a lot of that, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that has to go into just that driving position, because you're driving, you get there safely, and then you have to actually get the guys the water. I say guys as general term.
Yes,
It's
yes, and when I say fireman also,
Yeah, it's
general term. The fire hydrant,
Mhm.
let me ask you about that. Are you the ones who have to open it, know how to open the fire hydrant and do all that?
Yeah.
So is that hard to do? Looks to me like it is. You have instruments there that
Yep,
help
there are
you?
hydrant wrenches, you put attachments on that hook up the hose. You just pray that there's actually water in there.
Well, that is a point, because I
It's
know
the middle of
that,
the winter, it's cold,
right,
yeah.
and if it's
Sometimes
frozen,
freezes, yeah,
right, there's a problem.
yeah.
So what would you do if something's frozen? Just try to find another
Mhm.
fire hydrant
Yeah.
close to the place and run more hose
Yeah.
to get to
Mhm.
where it has to be. That's why we test the fire hydrants. I know
Yes.
sometimes
Mhm.
they open them and they let it run
I think they do it twice a year, spring
Yeah.
and fall.
Something
Yeah.
like that, yeah.
to make sure that it is working.
Mhm.
And the other thing is, this show is shown a number of times, and it might be even to the warm weather, but right now, we're in the cold weather.
Mm.
And it just reminds me that if a person has a fire hydrant in front of his or her home or place of business, really when you're shoveling snow, you should shovel out your fire hydrant.
Yes.
Yes.
To make
definitely.
right, to make sure that the firefighters can get to it, because otherwise you have to shovel it out,
Mhm.
and then you're wasting time.
Right.
Mm.
And in a fire, that's the last thing you wanna have to worry about is shoveling it out. I say that because, our prior home, we had a fire hydrant in front of our house, and when it would snow, we would always, especially in those blizzards, struggle through it, but we would make sure at least there was a path
Mhm.
for you to get to that fire hydrant, because that's time is of the essence. Do you feel that when you're on that call, your adrenaline's pumping and you just need to get there? So when you get to the scene, you assess
Mhm.
what's going on. What happens when you get to the scene, though, with, how do you know if people are in there, and what do you do to determine that?
Usually the cops are there first,
Mhm.
99% of the time, we're
Because they
lucky
can go
in
right
Freehold.
there, they don't have to get the rig.
They don't have to go to the firehouse, get on the truck, they're
Right.
usually, they respond and they'll be able to give an update to the radio room. If there are people inside, then, you know, we know what we're going into. But if there is nobody inside, you know, even if there is, you know, you're doing an initial 360 in the house to
Mhm.
see where the fire is it in the front, in the back, which side, so when other apparatus get on scene, they know where to park. Do you need a ladder truck? Do you need
Hmm.
other companies? Is it like we had the Stonehurst fire,
Mhm.
Yes.
you know, where there were 3 or 4 companies there because
And how do
it
you
was
make
such
that
a.
decision, I don't mean to interrupt,
That's
you,
okay.
but how do you make that decision, that I need now to call in another company or many companies?
It depends, you know, the size of the fire, where it is, size of the house, the construction of the house. If it's one of the taller homes, the bigger homes, and you need a ladder truck to get on the roof, you know, there's so many different things that go in decisions that literally happens within the first 5 minutes of a scene, from the initial call, that you have to make a decision and call for
Yeah.
help if you need it.
And you're trained to do all that. I'm just in awe of you, I really am. So I know that there's like and correct me if I'm wrong, a 1-alarm fire, a 2-alarm
Mhm.
fire. So what is a 1-alarm, a 2-alarm, a 3-alarm fire?
That determines how many companies are coming. So one alarm would be my company, we're going to a house fire, but we can handle it. Maybe it's a small fire, kitchen fire, oven fire. Like I was just saying, the other fire a couple weeks ago, I think it was a 3-alarm. I think they hit out the 3rd alarm because there were 3 companies there. So it goes by how many companies are called in.
How do they call them in? Who calls? Do you call into the county, or do you have each other's information?
No, we call the county. I mean, if the chief or an officer gets on scene, or if the cop says, hey, you've got a fully involved fire, it's easier to say, they say fill our first box alarm, which would be certain designated companies that come in, depending on which side of town, depending on what type of fire it is. There's all these different scenarios set up that the county has to say, okay, 16-2 needs their first alarm, you know, their first box filled, so it knows where to pull companies from. If you need more, you ask for more. But sometimes I think that it's easier to ask them to get on the road to come, and if you don't need them, you cancel them.
I would think so, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
and that's kind of the logic behind having that set up already, so you don't have to think about it, just fill the box.
It saves time.
Right.
And again, I always
Mhm.
think time is just so important when
Right.
you're dealing with a fire. So speaking of that, if someone has a fire in his or her home, they should right away call 911,
Of course.
rather than trying to put it out.
Absolutely.
Because you waste, again, I would think, valuable time if you're trying to do it and it just doesn't work. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think you would rather, if there was a fire and someone called and you got there and it wasn't such a big deal, to say, okay, rather than they try to do it, they wait to call you.
You don't wanna risk hurting yourself.
Yeah. That's a good point.
It just makes more sense to call someone who can come and, you know, wear the right gear and, you know, be able to protect themselves if it does turn into something big and you're just in your house, you could get hurt so easily.
Yeah, I didn't think of that, and that's a very good point, especially because there's different types of fires. Water does not always put out a fire.
Right.
It depends on the fire. So I know we have a small fire extinguisher in the kitchen and in the garage. We put one in there. I read that someplace. So I put one there, and I check them every once in a while, just to make sure that they're still good,
Yep.
because they have an expiration date on them. And
And speaking of that, smoke detectors have expiration dates too.
that's a great point.
7 to 10 years is a lifespan of a smoke detector and a carbon monoxide detector, because these sensors inside go bad. And a lot of our alarms that we go on, it's because the detector's 15, 20 years old, and it could have detected that smoke or could have not, and that's where you don't wanna, you wanna make sure you check those every now and then, check your dates.
At the dates of when you should replace them.
Right. It'll give you your manufacturer date on the back of the smoke detector, so if it's
Okay.
somewhere before 2009, right, it's 2019, you're
Now's the
looking at,
time.
you gotta replace it.
And batteries? You should
Batteries, every time you change your clocks.
So-
Even if you have a hardwired smoke detector, it still should change your batteries that are in
The
there.
newer homes have that,
Yeah.
because they all go off at one time.
Yeah.
So hard to detect exactly where the problem is, because they're all screeching, you know? But that's good, because it
Yeah.
gets your attention. But to change batteries then twice a year when you
Mhm.
set your clocks forward or back,
Right.
you wanna make sure that you do that as well, because they really are a way, especially carbon monoxide,
Sure.
which is usually now, the newer homes, it's all part of the
The-
smoke detector.
Right.
Because you won't know that there's
Right.
a problem.
Mhm.
And then call the fire department and take pets, people out and
Mhm.
get out.
Mhm.
Yep.
Right, that would be the best thing to do, and wait for them to arrive.
Yep.
I know in an emergency, hearing those sirens coming and you know that help is close, it really just gives you a good feeling. So what does your family think about this? That you wanted to be a fire person, a firefighter? What they think, encouraging?
My spouse is very encouraging. She worries, but, you know.
Yeah. Like when you leave, I'm thinking your families, when you have to run out,
Mhm.
it has to be hard on them.
It's very difficult.
Mhm.
Because, as with our police, as with first aid, you never know you're going out that door.
Right.
I know
And-
my mom always says when she hears if the pager goes off early in the morning and she hears us go out the door, she says that she can't fall back asleep until we're home,
Yeah.
because she doesn't know what we're going to or what
Right.
we're doing.
And you're so focused on getting there and doing what you have to do, there's no time to communicate home. You just need to
Yeah,
do the
right.
job and get it done.
Mhm.
So when, and the same thing I'm sure with your family as well.
Yeah,
that
my mom always worries, but she's undoubtedly supportive of anything
Yeah.
I do, so she deals with it, I guess.
Well, it's a lot, and we're so appreciative really of what you do and of your families, because without their support, none of this would happen as well. So you finish with the fire, let's say everything went well, the
Mhm.
fire was put out, everyone was safe, and now you come back to the firehouse, you
Mhm.
have to go back. So what happens then? You take off, now you're covered with soot, whatever from that fire. Your uniforms go back into your lockers, or do they get cleaned? Do you shower and then change and go back to your jobs? What happens?
I mean, it's pretty situational
Yeah,
dependent, but we are supposed to wash our gear. There's specific gear washing that has
Oh.
to be done when you come out of a fire. you're going from one to another, you can do an easy spray down
Right.
just to get some of the cancerous materials off of you. But you should be washing your gear after any sort of fire.
And you do that right there in the,
And each,
Firehouse
yeah,
station.
most every station has a gear washing. I mean, I know we do. You
We
guys
use
do.
don't.
yours.
Yeah,
We use yours.
Oh, okay, we use ours.
well, there, see?
There you go.
But that's great, we all work together.
Yep,
See,
yep.
that's terrific.
Yeah.
And you have let me just ask you also, because I'm just thinking about all the gear, you also have those boots that to me look very difficult to walk in, and yet I see you all just walking in them as if it was, are they heavy, are they?
I think when you first put them on, they feel weird, but you
Get
get
so
used
used
to
to
it
them.
really
You do.
fast.
They're kinda like really comfortable.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
look
Yeah.
really
Pretty
Comfortable?
Mhm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
They're steel toes, so they keep us protected, just in case anything falls on us, but we get
Yeah.
used to them.
Oh,
Or
so
if you
you're
step on
walking
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
with steel toes in them.
Mhm.
Well, you know what, we are just so fortunate to have you doing this and wanting to do this,
Mhm.
truly. I know I've said it before, it bears repeating over and over again. What advice, I'm gonna ask each one of you to think about, what advice would you give young ladies who are watching the show and who think that they might want to become a firefighter? I know it depends on age too, you have to be, I think, of a certain age, but what would you say to them? We'll start on this side first, we'll ask Rachel.
I would just say that don't underestimate your capabilities. That's the same reason that was preventing me from joining the fire company. I really just didn't think that I could do it until I did join and I went through the fire academy and realized that I was capable of so much more than I thought that I was physically and mentally. So just don't count yourself out. Don't let that stop you from trying something new. It's very, very rewarding.
How would, and I throw this out to just any of you, if someone wanted to become a firefighter, what do they do? And then we'll continue with your advice. But what's that first step to become a firefighter?
You go to your local station that you're close to. Usually they have meeting nights or a certain night a week that they're there. Walk in, ask to speak to somebody that can, talk to you about, a lot of companies have junior programs that we
Mhm.
do training for from 15 to 18 years old. So you can come in and apply as a junior and, work alongside with us and, get the same type of drills and training that, we're going through. You're not gonna go through everything, but you can test it out and see if
Gives
you
you a
like it.
sense
Yeah, it
of
gives
what
you
it
a
would
sense
be.
of what it would be. 9 times out of 10 they stay,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
and they move on with, the training.
Okay, what advice would you give?
I would just say that it's not weird. Most people think, like, if you're, like, a young girl, like, I would never, when I was, like, really young, have pictured myself to be doing this because it wasn't, like, the norm.
Right.
So, like, don't think that it's not the norm. And, like, I would just, if it's something that you're interested in, don't feel odd doing it. If that's something that you're wanting to do.
What age do you have to be to
I think
begin?
we could 15.
15 for the
Okay.
junior
Yeah.
program, yeah.
Okay, that's important,
Mhm.
because if someone's interested, she or he would have to be 15 to
Yeah.
begin.
To start out, yeah.
Right.
Okay. See, to me, that seems very young. I know not to any of you, but to me, that seems very young.
Well, they don't go in the fire, so that's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
And they won't go to bad motor vehicle accidents or
Yeah,
They're
there's
not
restrictions
on the
until-
calls
Okay.
they can go
until they
to.
become 18.
Oh,
Can go through
okay,
the
so they have 3 years of
Right.
getting used to it,
Right.
Mhm.
but you don't put them into situations
Right.
that young.
Yeah.
They
that
learn the
could be-
equipment, they learn, the training and what's involved, and they get their hands on things and get familiarized with it. But no, some of the bigger calls they won't go
They
on. So don't worry.
Yeah, see, I do, everything can't help it. But I didn't realize it could be so young. I'm learning so much today. I'm sure our viewers are also. So what would your advice be?
I think I would say don't allow where you come from or who you are to deter you from doing anything that you dream of doing. I think that for every one supporter you have, there's 3 people that are trying to tear you down. So don't let those people and that affect your mindset, and just push yourself and do things that push you outside your comfort zone, because those are the things that make the best memories.
That's great. Okay.
I know you guys touched on a lot of it, but if it's, like we've all said, if it's something that somebody wants to do and they feel that they can do it, and if you can do it, then we want you there, because that's what it's all about. It's, you know, your passion to do this type of work is not for everybody.
Right.
So if it's something that you feel you can do, we'll get you there, you know, and it takes a lot of training, but it's, you know, like with Rachel, it's really rewarding.
And you all were talking about the fact that you just said it will get you there. It really is, all the firefighters really do work together.
It's a brotherhood.
Yes,
It
and
really is.
really
Family.
help each other,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's remarkable also.
Yeah, it's a family. You
Yes.
walk into a family.
Yes.
And everybody supports each other and looks out for each other, and whether you're in the firehouse or in the middle of a fire, everybody supports each other and is there for each other, which is important.
It's very important, and it's something I don't know if people think about. You know, they just see the firefighters responding, and they don't realize how you become such a close-knit group because everyone's lives depend on it, really, and you're all facing the same situations,
Right.
and you're all trained to do it. I know the training is difficult, and I think it's just terrific that you all went through it. If someone tries and cannot go through it, that's not bad either. At least you've tried, because the training is very strenuous. It has to be. So I would say to any of our viewers who are interested, and you have the passion, we've mentioned that a number of times, try it. If you have the passion, try it. If you can't do it, at least you tried, and there might be something else you can do.
Mm-hmm.
At least you know that you did that, and you might find another path to public service, to volunteering. Because many of you are also, are you all EMTs?
Not me.
You're not.
I am.
They are.
You
yeah.
are.
Hmm?
You were, but you're going into a different direction with school.
Yes. Yeah. Federal law enforcement is where I want to go.
Yes, so it's just fascinating, the different backgrounds. I thank you all so much.
Thank you for
I
having us.
thank you for coming on the show. I know you took time out of your jobs to come here, and I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for being willing and able to speak with me today, to share what you have gone through, all of your experiences with our viewers. And I'm hoping that we have out there some young ladies who say, you know what, I'm inspired and I'm going to become a firefighter as well. So thank you all very much, and this has been a great program for me, and I thank you. Until next time, this is Mayor Barbara McMorrow saying stay safe and be well.